Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hi, I'm Christy Honeycutt. I'm your host for Inside the C-Suite, where execs get real about leadership, impact, and what it truly makes to make high-stake decisions. I'm really excited to have on the show today Dr. Ruth Gotian. She is the Chief Learning Officer for Cornell University. She is obsessed with success. She covers success lessons you never received, and she's a contributor for Ford, Psych Today, HBR, and she's a global TEDx speaker. She's also the top 50 executive coach. And if you guys see me looking to my board, it's because this woman has so many accolades, I don't know what to choose from. Ruth, thank you for gracing us with your presence and holding space today. Thank you for joining the show.
I am so excited when someone who's actually read my book, The Success Factor, says that they want to talk, because I know it's going to be a great conversation because we're going to go deep.
Well, we are going to go deep, and I did. Proof I did it. It's right here. Guys, I'm not kidding. I'm fangirling. You have to read this. It's very practical and tactical, and it's thoughtful. It's incredibly thoughtful. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're joining us from.
Yeah, so I am from hot and humid New York City, where the curls are not quite behaving in this humidity, but, we're rolling with it. I am a social scientist who studies success. I've been obsessed with success for a very long time. Look, I'm from New York. I am surrounded by it. And I always was curious, how do certain people have it, get it, maintain it? Those who are the hedge fund managers, the Broadway stars, the professors in the Ivy League. How is it that certain people have this success? And how can the rest of us get it? What did they know that we don't know? So at the age of 43, while working full-time and raising my family, I decided to find out. I went back to school, and I have been studying it ever since. I went deep, deep, deep with the research. The research will outlive me because I get to study Nobel Prize winners and astronauts and Olympians and NBA champions and senior politicians and CEOs. And that's what I wrote my dissertation about. That's what I wrote the book, The Success Factor, about. That's what I talk about in cocktail parties. I definitely have the best stories. So there are more people to interview. There will always be more people to interview. And I am excited. Every day is a new day.
I love that you said at cocktail parties. So I actually just watched your one of your YouTube TED Talks, and you used a experience I think you had on riding on the subway and seeing the different types of individuals that you would come across. That really resonated with me because I tend to go into all different. I'm a chameleon. I thrive everywhere. I love everybody, but I've noticed that there truly is a difference depending on your background, where you were raised, how you were brought up. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? Because it was really eye-opening.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Bronx, which is, it's great, but all the cool kids were hanging out in Manhattan. So I would take the subway down from the Bronx to Manhattan to be with all the cool kids because I was desperately trying to be a cool kid. And all along the subway, we get to 116th Street, that's Columbia University. So I saw the academic types. We get to Midtown. I saw everyone with these tailored pinstripe blue suits. I mean, tailored to perfection. I would get to the theater district. I'd see actors and dancers, everyone with this perfect posture. And I'm sitting there, slumped over in the subway, observing, because I'm definitely a people watcher.
Me too.
Like, what is it that they have? Like, how did they get that? Right? Because there's clearly something very, very different. And I saw that as a tween, and it hadn't left me for decades. And then I just decided to find out. And the best way to find out, it's not on whims, vibes, and anecdotal experiences. but to actually do research. And I decided I was going to interview the most successful people of our generation. And I got to work and haven't stopped.
How did you get them to say yes to an interview?
I'm pretty personable.
I mean,
right?
like me, I had to chase you.
So at the time, I was running what's called an MD PhD program for the students who want to get both the MD and PhD degree. And it was part of in New York City. So where I was working, I actually knew some Nobel Prize winners. They were on our campus. And once you get to know one and you do a good job and they know, like, and trust you, I would ask, who else do you think I should talk to? And they say, oh, you need to talk to blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, would you mind introducing me? And that's how those came about. The astronauts, I heard one speak. He was on a panel. I waited till every single person asked their question. And then I approached him. And he said something about his son, who is at Columbia, and I'm a Columbia alum. And I didn't talk to him about being an astronaut. I talked to him about his son, and he told me what his son wanted to do and was looking for a job. And I said, well, I know somebody who works in this space. Can I put the two of them together? So therefore, he had to give me his name and email, right? And that's how that started.
I love that.
And then I got to interview him and he introduced me to others. And once you get to one, and I've gone all the way to the first female space shuttle, Commander Eileen Collins, the first female commander of the International Space Station, Peggy Whitson, who's actually going to space next week. The NBA's very funny. I was on a Zoom call. I had no idea that he was a 2-time NBA champion. I was in this group with a lot of high achievers. And I was introduced to somebody who studies success, and I started explaining what I do. And then the chat is key on Zoom, which most people don't use. And people were saying, oh, Ruth, very nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And this guy started saying, Ruth, it's very nice to meet you. What exactly do you work on? And so I was telling him, and I said, and what exactly do you do? And he said, I play basketball. I'm like, huh? And then he said, I won the NBA championship twice with my team. So I'm quickly Googling him. And then once I met him, it just expanded, and, I'm interviewing another one next week, and the rest is history.
That is so amazing. And it's crazy because it's being human, right? It's
every day
listening. It's, providing a service or providing a hand, right? Like that really means so much. So when is your earliest memory of being obsessed with success? Was it the tween on the subway, or was it even earlier than that?
It was way before that. I always noticed that there were some people, and I'm not just talking about money.
Right.
Because I didn't really understand what money was when I was very, very young, right? Elementary school. But there were certain people who just looked more put together, sounded more put together. Their job sounded bigger. Their importance sounded bigger. Their impact sounded bigger. And I said, how does that happen?
You've always been curious.
I would observe a lot, as a kid. But I was having trouble connecting the dots. And then I worked in higher ed for a long time. The program I ran, the MD PhD program, had a 3.5% acceptance rate. Those students were really the catalyst for this research, because when everyone around you is getting a doctorate, it doesn't seem so impossible anymore. It seems normal. And this question was nagging at me for decades. And I noticed even within this program, with this 3.5% acceptance rate, there were those who floated to the top. And it came to the point that I had this spidey sense of, there's something different. And I said, this one's going to float to the top. That one's going to float to the top. But I couldn't predict why.
But your gut was right.
My gut was right. But I needed research to support my gut.
So my uncle taught me, he's since passed, but my uncle taught me how to pick racehorses. I know this sounds crazy, because I read body language, and just I'm really good. It's a natural thing for me. So he took me to teach me how to read racehorses. I think I was 17. And he said, you want to look for the ones, and there was just certain things he looked for. You want to look for the ones that have this twinkle in their eye and they have a little jumpy spirit before they're going out. He said, they'll always place. And I'll be doggone if he's not right. Like every time and I'm not a big better. I've only been maybe 3 times, but every time I go, I follow those same rules. So I get that. It's a gut thing. It's a natural gifting you have. And it's wonderful, but it's not natural for everybody else. And there was something you said that average is the floor, not the ceiling.
Yes.
And I love that quote. I love that quote, right? And I think there's those of us that will never accept average, that we always strive for more. We have open mindset, super curious. But for organizations, so the audience here is probably CEOs or leaders within the HR and talent space. How do they identify those potential superstars? Or do you have any
Yeah.
ahas?
But let's go back a second, because I think we are subconsciously being told to aim for average. All the language that we use has the word mean, median, average, benchmark. Those are all words that mean average, and we're always told to aim for that. Why would I want to aim for the benchmark? Why wouldn't I want to exceed the benchmark? When did average become the goal? And I think average should be the floor. That should be the bare minimum. It shouldn't be the ceiling. That should be the floor. And that is how I like to approach things. And I do a lot of executive coaching with high achievers who feel that they want to far exceed the average. They're looking to break barriers. They're looking to break records. They're looking to be able to do things that others can't do. So for those leaders who want to create an environment that has these people, look for the people who are curious. Look for the people who they want some sort of a frame, but then leave them alone because they know what to do within that frame. They're asking different types of questions. They are making connections between ideas that other people don't yet see. They're hanging out with other people who are just like them. Now, you want to get more of those people because that high achievement is contagious. And what happens is when you have those people, it gets everyone else to level up their game.
Yes.
Now, the opposite is also true. If you have a toxic employee and you only need one, that negativity spreads, and it spreads further. And there's actually research to back this up. It spreads much further. So you want to remove that toxic person. You want to support those high achievers, because who do you think their friends are?
High achievers.
Other high achievers. And if you're able to support those people, not only will you retain them, they're going to be your recruiters. Because if you're able to support them, because right now we support the below average employees, those who are not meeting those benchmarks, right? Those who are not able to get the average, right?
Right.
Those are the people who get on a performance improvement plan. They get sent to workshops and classes, and there's a supervisor to make sure that they hit milestones. And that's for people who are not meeting benchmarks. The people who are blowing benchmarks out of the water, imagine if they got those resources. They got sent to courses and workshops, not because they want to get to average, because they want to learn new skills. So you start asking them, what's a skill you want to learn? Who's a person you want to meet? What's something that you want to grow in? What's a conference I can send you to, a workshop that you want to participate in? Those people want to learn. They want to learn. And you know how I know this? When I give my keynote about the success factor. And since then, I now always ask, is there a Nobel Prize winner or, Olympian in the audience, right? Anyway, there's this guy sitting in the front row, and I am running through my presentation, and he's taking notes. I mean, for the whole hour, he is taking notes, pages and pages and pages. I'm like, what is this guy writing? Pages and pages of notes. Turns out he's an Olympian and an NBA champion, and he'd retired. But he was still learning because he said, I want to use this for the next thing that I'm doing. And he said, and I said to him, well, did I get it right? Because I use people like you. He said, absolutely right, because I talked about the 4 elements of success. And he said, I haven't felt this way since I played in the NBA.
Oh, that's
I
so
now
wonderful.
remembered why I'm doing this. This lit the fire. Because the 4 elements of success will work in any industry. And that's what it's all about.
So what are the 4 elements of success?
So the first one is you tap into the intrinsic motivation, right? It's why you're doing it. And I could promise you it is not for the Nobel Prize. It is not for the Olympic medal. It's not for the NBA championship. It's not for the World Series, right? You love it. You can't not do it, right? That's number 1. Number 2, yes, it's resilience and grit and all of that, but really it's how you overcome challenges. Peggy Whitson, the astronaut I was talking about who's going to space in a week, she's a biochemist. She worked at NASA and applied for 10 years to become an astronaut. For 10 years, a full decade. And every time she applied, she was rejected. But she never gave up. Ultimately, she got accepted. She spent more days in space than any American astronaut of any gender. Became the first female commander of the International Space Station, a role she held twice. Became NASA's chief astronaut. She was just last week inducted to the Astronauts Hall of Fame.
I have
And
goosebumps.
now she came out of retirement to go back to space. So it's how you're looking at challenges. One of the Olympic medalists who I coach, when the Olympics were postponed for a year due to the pandemic, he couldn't go to his gym. Now, athletes at that level don't go to your regular Planet Fitness, right? They don't go to your regular gym. They have special equipment. Well, he couldn't get there, but he still need to work out because now he had a whole year. He had to stay in shape and whatever. In the parking lot of his building, he essentially took over a section, put weights there, moved in with a training partner, and they would train in the parking lot of his building every single day. Sometimes it gets a little loud because it's judo. The police had to get called in, but that's a whole other story. When they realized who it was, everything was fine.
Wow.
So that's how you, it's how you overcome challenges. They never ask if they'll overcome. It's always a question of how. And the third one is what made them so great at the beginning is what they continue doing. They don't stop just because they got to this level of success. I interviewed Neil Katyal, who at this point has argued over 50 cases before the Supreme Court of the United States. He still prepares in the exact same way. He doesn't say, I've done 50 cases, I don't need to prepare anymore. He has a binder that has the answer to every question he might get asked. He runs moot courts. Moot courts are like a simulated court environment to practice. He does these things for every single case. And last but not least, and this is the reason that NBA champion was sitting in the front row taking notes, even with all of their accolades, they are still learning. And they don't care who the teacher is. It could be someone senior to them, at their level, junior to them, a different industry, the same industry. There's this thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you an example. I was mentioning that Olympian that I coach. He, in his country, was a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. Now, I mentioned he's in judo, so they're not exactly graceful. And I was like, oh, how's this going to work out? Okay, well, he had the professional partner that he was paired with. And then all of a sudden, we had to change the hours of when we were meeting because now he started taking yoga. Now he started taking Pilates. He bought a full-size mirror so that he can practice in front of the mirror. And then he went to watch ballroom dancing competitions so that he can understand what it's like. Yes, so it's not just outworking. It's figuring out what the challenge is, how you're going to overcome it, constantly learning in any which way. Now, he finished that competition a long time ago. He still does the yoga, he still does the Pilates, and he's still learning.
I love that on so many levels. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but my grandfather is the very first person that ever taught me the concept of mentorship. And we're sitting on the porch, very, very young girl. And he said, he called me sis. I called him Pop. He said, sis, you need to always stay in the middle. And I go, okay, yeah. What's that mean, Pop? And he goes, well, you need to always be in the middle, be a service to other people. You need to be reaching down to pull somebody else up. That is your duty. That is karmic law. And by doing that, you need to be looking up for someone to pull you up that you admire, that you can look at and not emulate, but just somebody that is a different point of view than you. But the thing that I missed in like listening to you and reading your books and stuff like that is, yes, it is above and below. I think that is spot on from a World War II vet, right? That's spot on. But I also think that there is a peer-to-peer thing that I didn't take into, I didn't really think about that until recently, quite honestly, because I think I've been in that relationship where I either was mentoring or I was being mentored. But now it's like we move in and I hear a lot of organizations trying to figure out, and me recently, I was a head of people for a large organization. And the number one thing was, they wanted to build a mentorship program.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's do it. But here's the problem. You're not going to make everybody happy. Not everybody wants mentorship. And I'm sorry, but a couple of them thought, average was the ceiling, right?
Yep.
So it's like, how do you help organizations think through, like, how should they think through mentorship programs like that? Because I don't think it's a one size fits all.
Which is exactly why I wrote the next book, which is Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. And I wrote that with Andy Lapata because we realized that every single one of these high achievers had mentors. Almost every single Fortune 500 company has a mentoring program. The problem is it's very often a checkbox, and it's not really run well, and it's not designed well. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is it's very often on pairing, right? You're in marketing, I'm in marketing, you're both from Iowa. Let's put you together because certainly everyone from Iowa is exactly the same. Well, no, but that's usually what happens. And then there's no exit ramp if it doesn't work out.
Right.
There's no goals. There's no training to how to do this well. The more contemporary approach is actually not one-on-one mentorship with somebody who's senior. It's actually mentoring teams. But that is not yet developed within organizations. So that's one of the reasons that we're showing people how to do it. And we wrote the book, The Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, really to offer that playbook on how to do it well and how to do it right. And also to recognize what I call not mentors, but tormentors.
Oh,
The ones who are toxic. Look, when mentoring is done right, the benefits are endless, right? So the mentee is 5 times more likely to get promoted. The mentor is 6 times more likely to get promoted. It's lower burnout. It's higher productivity. I mean, we know all of these things, right? Higher self-efficacy. We know all of that.
right.
But when there's tormentors, that toxic mentor, that's actually really bad because when that happens, it takes a while to pull apart that pairing, but then that mentee is likely not going to look for a mentor again. Now their entire career is stalled because of one bad person. They're likely not going to want to dip their toe into that mentoring waters again. And that's a shame because we know what the benefits are. They get higher salaries, more promotions, all of these things. So it's important to be transparent about what those tormentors look like, what to do if you're faced with it. There is an out for it, but just people don't know what it is. And they feel like they're on an island by themselves. They're not. There are ways to get out of that. And when mentoring works, that you have the whole team working, it is incredible. Incredible. I mean, show me one high achiever who has gotten to where they are without mentors. The top CEOs still have mentors. They have coaches and mentors.
So I hired my very first personal coach about 3 years ago. And what I've found and what I'm really passionate about, because I've helped support and centralize talent acquisition and HR functions for years for really large companies. But what I find is you've got a lot of these people that are at the top and there is nobody for them to go to. So if you think of a CHRO, who are they going to go to? The CEO that doesn't know anything and they think that they're just doing benefits and payroll? Like they don't understand all the challenges. And that's for any role. That's just an example. But what I found that was interesting is that they reach out to CHROs in the same industry, which is brilliant. But a lot of people don't think to do that. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't think, hey, I'm a CHRO at JCPenney's. Let me reach out to the CHRO at Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Like
Right.
we just don't think about we might be doing the same things. And I think that peer mentoring is really beneficial. But for me, because I didn't have that and I was at the top and I needed a little bit of something extra. And for me, it was more than just work. It was also personal life. So I got a personal coach. And I say this a lot. I say she saved my life. My life was never in jeopardy, but she helped me see and uncover the possibilities that were out there for me. And for me, my eyes just opened and I got more curious and more hungry. And because I was kind of stuck, right? Coming out of COVID and doing a big move, and my son was severely sick. And we all have the stories. My grandfather died. I was just kind of stuck. Like, what's my purpose? Where am I going? Am I happy? And so it was much deeper than just my career.
Yeah.
And so when I had that mirror and I had someone to kind of hold me accountable and talk to me and make me show up for myself, it was a beautiful thing. So she, in fact, saved my life, meaning my sanity, which I love. So I'm very passionate about the coaching and mentoring. And I think that this is why I fangirl you so much, because I believe in your methodology and the things that you're saying.
It's so true. Look, the coaching, which I think is critical, and it's not cheap. The good ones are not cheap. But if you're going to make the investment, and it's investment, you can go to these endless courses, or you can invest in somebody who will hold up a mirror and push you out of your comfort zone. And you want that because the coaches can really help you get unstuck. And they ask a lot of questions, and they don't have to be within the same industry as you as well. The other thing you were talking about, you're a CHRO, but you're on an island by yourself because there's only one. Who do you talk to? There's actually a term for it. It's called a community of practice. So if you now start meeting with other CHROs from other organizations, and you have a way to communicate, an email, a WhatsApp group, a Slack, whatever, but you can ask each other questions. You have conferences. You have a way to communicate, a way to get together, a way to exchange ideas. That's called a community of practice. No matter what industry you are in, and no matter what level you are in, you want to be part of a community of practice. It makes the work less isolating. I don't care if there's one of you or 1,000 of you. You want to be part of that community of practice. And you can be part of multiple communities of practice. And if one doesn't exist, start one. All you need is a keyboard, right? And an internet connection. Because if you wanted, you do marketing research moms from the Northeast, start one. And you can start exchanging ideas. And the second you're able to do that, you will see that you start thinking differently because these people are stretching your mind.
You had some other practical guidance too. Well, obviously I follow you and read your books and I'm just like your biggest fan. But you were talking, what was it? It was about networking, because I find like all of these things are a little bit about, you have to be brave enough to be self-aware, maybe reach out, have the conversation, and you have to show up for yourself. So you gave some networking tips. They were kind of on the spot, but they were so fun. Can you share that with the audience?
Yeah. So, my contact list did not have astronauts and Olympians and NBA players when I first started this, right? I needed one in each category. The goal was to get one. But whenever you meet someone, it's all about what you can offer, not what you're asking for. And I don't care who you are, what level you're in, there's always something you can offer. The example I like to share is there was this Nobel Prize winner, one of the people who I interviewed, and he came out with an autobiography. Everyone he knows is in the sciences. I've read his autobiography. It is incredible. He had no idea how to market his book. My books make bestseller lists. I know how to market a book, right? So I mentored him on how to market his book. I'm not a Nobel Prize winner. I'm never going to be a Nobel Prize winner. I have no interest in being a chemist or biochemist in his case, but I know how to market a book. And that was something he didn't know, but he was willing to learn. Remember, high achievers are open to learning, and they don't care who they're learning from. I didn't have to be the world expert. I just had to be the expert in the room. the one that he had a connection to. So I kept giving him tips, and I kept telling him different things that he should do, and I kept giving him different referrals, and he was doing them. And what do you know? His book sold and sold and sold. So it's all about having that offer. Now, most people will say, I don't know what to talk to people about, and I don't want to talk about the weather, and it's going to be awkward. Well, one of the ways to do that, and if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see articles about it, newsletters about it, how you can start conversations with complete strangers. One of the tools that you need is a list of conversation starters. These are your go-to ways to open a conversation where it instantly makes the connection. So you remember I told you about the astronaut. I heard about his son right away. I made the son, Columbia. I went to Columbia. It doesn't matter that we weren't in the same school at Columbia, the same year, the same major. Irrelevant.
Right.
There was the connection. It's all about making a connection. Now, if your audience wants to download conversation starters, they can just pull them right from my website. They go to Ruth Gotian, RuthGotian, ruthgotian.com/conversation. And they can get 13 of my favorite conversation starters.
What's your favorite?
I don't have a favorite.
That's what I tell my kids. So they'll say, which one's your favorite? The one I'm looking at and talking to at the time. That's what I always tell them.
I don't have a favorite because I'm always looking for immediately something I can connect with. If people didn't believe me, I'm an extrovert. So for me, this is like breathing, right? And the introverts in my life were saying, you have to document this because you make it look so easy. I said, it is easy.
For you.
So that's why I started documenting it and explaining what my process was like. And I was speaking to the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Scholars, and I said, who are, 2 generations younger than me, and I said, or generation younger than me, and I said, I bet you I can find something in common with each and every one of you. And they didn't believe me. One at a time, they lined up. Within 30 seconds, I found something in common with each one. Some guy says he's from Los Angeles. I said, oh, you must sit in traffic a lot. I have an hour-and-a-half commute to work each day. Boom, we were off and running. Right? And that's what it was like all the time. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had over curly hair. I have very curly hair. To me, that's the easiest one. I don't know if it's a favorite. It's definitely the easiest when I meet another person with curly hair. Right away, we start talking about controlling the frizz. But that's what I do each and every time. So no matter anyone I see, I will immediately find something that we can connect on. And it's never about work. Never about work.
Well, it's about relationships. It's about being human. And that's why your work resonates with me to my core. For me, my read is that you're being very human. You want people to succeed and be successful, right? And it's all very heart and purpose driven.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. That's what I feel. That's why I like you. It's why I follow you. And it's really beautiful. So I know you don't have a favorite, like break the tea, start the conversation, but I'm going to ask this question. And I know you probably are going to give me the same answer I give my kids. Who was your favorite interview?
Oh, I can answer that one. So I can tell you which was my most interesting and the one that surprised me the most.
Okay.
Totally was not expecting. Apollo Ono, the short track speed skater who won the Mirrorball Trophy on Dancing with the Stars. And the reason I found him so fascinating was that he was so well read on every imaginable topic that could make him better at his sport. I felt like I was talking to a colleague. I mean, that's how deep it went. And I was not expecting that at all. A lot of the people who I have interviewed, I now consider very good friends. And we go out and we hang out together and all this because when I interview them, I say, I want to talk about things I can't Google about you. And I have to get them to open up and trust me very, very quickly. And they realize that they have trusted me with their story and they have seen what I do with it. And I ask permission before I post things. And as a result, there was that trust. Now, some of them I have never met in person yet, and some we hang out with all the time. So, it's based on where I happen to be in the world and if they're there. But I think those were bonds and friendships that were formed in a very, very, very authentic way.
Oh, for sure.
So they're all my
100%.
favorites.
So you have some other really good nuggets that I love, and it's everybody, hopefully if they're watching the show, they're probably curious, right? And they want to grow. We would hope. I'm selfishly do this for myself to grow, but I'm just curious, like micro learnings. What are some things that you would recommend? So Headway app, I'm guilty. Like I am a Headway app all the time. If I can't get a whole book through, I'll listen to that on a drive versus anything or a podcast even. What are your recommendations for micro learnings?
So what I know is that everyone takes in and processes information differently. So I don't want to say it's just podcasts because podcasts might work for you. It might not work for someone else.
Right.
And it might work for you today. It might not work for you in 6 months from now. So you want to be open to the different ways of learning. And it could be podcasts and articles and books and webinars and LinkedIn learning courses, and listening to lectures and having conversations with people. Those all work. I happen to be a big fan of reading. I'm always reading 3 books at the same time. I'm listening to a podcast sometimes in the car. I have taken well over 100 LinkedIn learning courses. I'm also a LinkedIn learning instructor and a Udemy instructor, so I have a bunch of courses there as well because I think it just works so well. It works so well. So I think they're all great.
Yeah, I like all of those too. The latest one that I've seen is Mave. Have you heard of Mave? It's a very interesting one. A lot of people are going on that teaching courses because I think a lot of people have unique things that they can share with other people that are valuable. And it's as easy as a chatbot search or a Google search, either way, right? Whichever, pick your poison.
I like to, when I create courses, it's always based on research. I have a love-hate relationship with leadership books. I think a lot of them are based on wins and vibes and anecdotal experiences, but your experiences are going to be different than mine. So I need to know that there's some research behind this, but I want them based on research, but I don't want to listen to theory all the time. I think people want actionable tips. So those are the books that I favor. Those are the types of books that I write. That's how I teach my courses as well. I do want to tell anyone who's listening, I talked about the 4 elements of success. You need to be able to do all 4. You're probably strong in some, and there's areas of growth in some of the others. And if you want to learn where you're strongest and where you can grow and ideas of how to grow, anyone who's listening, there's an assessment that you can take totally free. RuthGotian.com. It's on my website, RuthGotian.com/assessment. You take that. It's based on the success factor research, but it's written in plain English. And you will be able to see where you're strong, where you can grow, and how to grow.
So I know what I'm doing this weekend. Oh, goodness. Ruth, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show and have you share your knowledge. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I just thank you for what you bring to our community. This is going to outlive you, like you said. Like you're interviewing great people, but let's not forget that you're doing the work. And so thank you for that. And I mean, you're going to be, you are a legacy. She's a legacy, guys. Buy the book, follow her, friend her, LinkedIn her, all the things. I promise if you're listening or watching this podcast, this is who you need to be talking to. So is there anything you want to leave the audience before we stop?
Well, yes, I think the success factor is great. And the follow-up book, The Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, if you liked some of those stories, Steve Kerr, the 9-time NBA champion and coach of the Golden State Warriors, he wrote the foreword to the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring.
That's my next book I'm going to buy.
That's the next book. And you know what? I think there's something there for everyone. I tried to share as much of these success tips in these bite-sized formats. And I try to do it in all those micro-learning ways that we talked about, the LinkedIn learning courses, the newsletters, the books, the articles. So if you follow on LinkedIn, you will get access to all of those and pick your own adventure, whichever one works for you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again for your time. Audience, I hope you enjoyed this wisdom that come from Dr. Ruth. It was just amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.